Hello everyone and welcome to Chess 5, and today I'm going to show you a very interesting game which is between Michal versus Praggnanandhaa. And in my previous video I showed the game between Michal versus Kirill Alexenko. In that game Michal just won the game and he simply crushed Alexenko Kirill, and he even sacrificed the rook. And if I talk about Praggnanandhaa is obviously a youngster from India and he plays a very interesting and attacking chess. So what we are expecting is a very interesting game and also a very complicated game. So let's start. So till then, stay tuned and keep watching Chess Vibes. So Michal with the white pieces and Praggnanandhaa with the black pieces. So let's start. So Michal with the white pieces started with one knight f3. So Praggnanandhaa replied with d5. We have d4, knight to f6. In this position, if Michal plays bishop f4, we have the London system, but he plays c4, so we have the queen's pawn opening, and here we have d into c4 by black. So we are now in the queen's gambit accepted variation. So after d into c4, we have knight to c3 by white, and now we have a6 by black. So black is definitely trying to play b5, and black would be having a very nice pawn chain, and black would be like, okay, I'm just a pawn up. So after a6, we have e4 by white. So white is basically having a very nice center. Both the knights are very developed, and the bishop on f1 is targeting up the pawn on c4. But the main problem in this position for white here is here black can definitely protect the pawn on c4 with the b5. And second problem of white is the center pawns will become target in the future, so that's why it's a big problem for white. So after e4, we have b5 by black, keeping the pawn chain very strong. Now we have e5 by white. So white is basically asking the knight on f6 that whether he wants to go back to d7 or whether he wants to confront by playing knight to d5. So we have knight to d5 by black, e4 by white. So now white threat is very simple. He wants to capture the pawn on b5, and now it's a double attack. And second, if white captures the pawn on b5, black cannot capture the pawn on b5 because the rook is hanging on a8. So after a4, Praggnanandhaa played a very nice move, which is e6 in this position. Very nice move. He's saying, okay, you can grab my pawn on b5, I don't care. So we have a into b5. So white captured of the pawn, and now we have bishop to b4 by black, developing the piece, pinning up the knight. So now the knight is double attacked. So white have to protect the knight. So we have queen to c2 by white. We have knight to b6 by black. So now it's a equal material. Both the players are having an equal material. So, and it's a bit complicated game, but soon the game would get more complicated. So after knight b6, the knight is protecting the pawn on c4. So we have the knight is protecting the pawn on c4. So now we have queen to e4 by white. Now we have queen to d5 by black. So basically the knight on c3 cannot capture up the queen on d5 because the knight is pinned on c3. And now black is asking that white wants to trade up the queens. So white played queen to g4 in this position, saying, okay, I'm not going to trade the queens anymore. And now the queen is attacking the pawn on g7. So now we have a into b5 by black. So if now white captures the rook on a8, then the rook is no longer hanging because the queen on d5 is protecting the rook on a8. So now we have rook into a8, queen into a8, and now we have queen into g7 by white. So white simply captured up the pawn on g7, and now the queen on g7 is hitting the rook on h8. So now black played bishop into c3, check, b into c3, and now in this position I want all of you guys to feel free to pause the video and try to find the only move for black which equalizes the position, because all rest moves give a winning advantage to white. So feel free to pause the video and try to find the best move for black in this position. So okay, So all of those who have found queen to a1, congratulations, this is the best move. And all those who have found rook f8, sorry, but this is not the right move, because after rook f8, white is going to simply play bishop to e2, and if you now try to play queen to a, sorry about that, that's the wrong arrow. So here, if black tries to play queen a1, then white will simply castle, and white is having a very nice position, and white is better in this position. So that's why after b into c3, queen to a1 is the best move. So we have queen into h8 check, king to d7, and now we have bishop to e2 by white. So basically now white is giving up the bishop on c1. If white tries to protect the bishop on c1 by playing king to d2, then we have queen to a2 check, and after queen to a2 check, you have to take your king back, and after queen a1, it's an equal position. It's the position just repeated. So that's why the game went in a draw. So after king to d7, we have bishop to e2 by white. So white is just giving up the bishop on c1, but still white would be an exchange plus. But according to engine, the position is equal. So obviously the game is very complicated. So we are going to love this game. So after bishop to e2, we have queen into c1 check. Bishop to d1 is a forced move for white. We have queen into c3 check by black, and the king is attacked. So now we have knight to d2. So white just protected the check, and now even the pawn on d4 is hanging. But first we have knight to c6 by black. So black is like, okay, I'm not going to capture many pawns. First I'm going to develop the piece, then I'm going to capture a pair pawn. So after knight to c6, we have queen into h7, capturing of the pawn, and perhaps white is preparing to pull the queen back to c2, trading the queens, and then castle, and perhaps then white is the one who is better in this position. So this is the plan of white, and even the queen on h7 is also hitting the pawn on f7. So there could be many threats. So after queen into h7, we have knight into d4, capturing of the pawn, and now white cannot play queen to c2 because knight is covering the square. So we have queen into f7 check by white, capturing of the pawn and attacking the king. So now we have king to c6 by black, queen to f4, and after queen to f4, we have knight to d5 in this position. At the place of playing queen to f4, sorry about that, after playing queen to f4, a better move could be in this position to play h4. The reason h4 is very safe. White is definitely planning to push the pawn and make a queen. But what happened in the game after king to c6, we have queen to f4, which was not a good move, and now the black is the one who is better in this position. And now we have knight d5 by black, developing the piece and also hitting the queen on f4. So now we have queen to e4 by white, king to c5. So black is definitely move the king because now black is preparing to play knight to b4, and perhaps knight to d3 is a very deadly idea for black. So after king c5, we have h4 by white, and now we have bishop to b7 by black, which was the blunder by Praggnanandhaa. A better move at the place of playing bishop b7 could have been to play simply knight to b4. And after knight b4, black is the one who is better in this position. The threats are many. Perhaps black can play knight to d3 check, or perhaps even knight to c2 check, and black is the one who is better. But what happened in the game after h4, we have bishop b7, and after playing bishop b7, now the game is equal. We have h5 by white, pushing up the pawn, trying to make a queen. We have knight b4 now, castle, because white is like, okay, I'm going to give up my knight on d2. And after knight to b4, if you look the position closely, now white is having option. First of all, white can capture up the bishop, or he can castle, give up the knight on d2, which happened in the game. And if I talk about black, black is now threatening to capture up the queen on e4, and perhaps even knight d3 checks are very deadly checks, and even knight to c2 checks could be very deadly checks. So many things are happening in this position. If white would have captured the bishop on b7 by playing queen into b7, this is the losing move for white, because now comes the only move for black which wins the game for black, because now comes knight to d3 check by black. So king is forced to go to f1, and after king f1, we have queen to d2 capturing up the knight. And if you look this position at closely, the pawn is hanging on f2 and it's a game over for white, and even the bishop is hanging on d1. So that's why it's completely over for white. White simply got crushed. So that's why after knight b4, white made a very nice choice, which is the only move for white so that he would be having an advantage, which was castle, and Michael just found it. So very brilliant move found by Michael. So after castle, black cannot capture the queen. The reason, if black tries to capture the queen, then after bishop into e4, now we have knight into e4 check, and the queen is hanging on c3. So if king moves, now we have knight into c3, and if you count the material, white is just a rook up, and even the white can make a queen, and it's game over for black. So that's why bishop into e4 is not possible. So we have queen to d2 by black, capturing up the knight. We have queen into b7, capturing up the bishop. Knight to d5, h6. So white is trying to push up the pawn and trying to make a queen. We have c3 by black. So black is also trying to push the pawn and trying to make a queen. Now we have h7 by white. So white is just one step um, behind to make a queen. Now we have queen h6 by black. So black is definitely protecting the square on h8 so that white would not be able to make a queen on h8. Now we have queen to a7 check, king to c4, bishop to g4, and now bishop g4 was blundered by white in this position. At the place of playing bishop g4, white can give queen to a2 check, and the best move for black in this position is to play king to c5, and after king c5, white can repeat the position, and perhaps the game would be ended in a draw. But after king c4, as humans are playing the game, so obviously they will obviously try to do something else. So we have bishop to g4 by white, and after bishop g4, we have c2 by Praggnanandhaa, which is the best move. And now black is the one who is better in this position. So black is definitely trying to make a queen on the next move. So we have queen to a2 check, king to b4, queen to b2 check, king to c4, and now we have rook to e1 by white. And after rook e1, the most natural move in this position is to simply capture up the pawn on h7, and after queen into h7, black is simply better in this position. But what happened in the game at the place of playing queen into h7 was very weird. Praggnanandhaa played knight to f4, which was a blunder in this position, and after playing knight to f4, white is the one who is winning this position. Can you find the best move for white in this position? So okay, so all those who have found h8 queen, congratulations, this is the only move for white which wins the game. Because of here black have to capture up the queen, and now we have rook to e4, and after playing rook e4, the knight on f4 is hanging, even the knight on d4 is hanging, and it's completely game over for black. If anyone who is thinking, why making a queen, why can't white play directly rook e4? Rook e4 is not working because after rook e4, try to find the best move for black, which wins the game for black immediately. If you found knight to h3 check, congratulations, it's a check, so you have to capture up the knight. And after g into h3, you are going to make a queen on c1 with a check, so you have to trade a queen. And after a couple of moves, black is going to capture up the pawn and he's going to win the game. So that's why rook to e4 is not possible directly. So that's why white first made a queen, and after capture, we have rook to e4, because now knight h3 is no longer possible because the queen is not covering the square on c1. So this was the whole idea. So after rook to e4, the queen and the rook is attacking the knight on d4. So black have to push up the pawn to c5, and after rook into f4, queen into e5, white is simply winning the position. Although it looks very dangerous for white because the pawn on c2 is very strong, but white is just a rook up, and so white just simply converted the position after a couple of moves. After a couple of moves, we can see white is just piece plus is just a bishop plus. Here black cannot capture up the pawn because white will simply try to push up the pawn. So that's why after playing f3 on the move number 44, so Praggnanandhaa with the black pieces resigned the game and Michal with the white pieces won the game. It was a very complicated game and very interesting game. Um, Black played very nice, but in the end, Black just misplayed everything. But okay, shout out to Michal and Praggnanandhaa. Both played a very fantastic game. So if you also like this game, then you can like to the video. If you are new to my channel, then you can subscribe to the channel, share the video. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you for watching and bye bye.